My game used to look like this, and now it looks like this, and I did it without any drawing or pixel art or anything like that, and the first step is to pick some colors. I wanted some sort of yellowy, browny, orange to match the feel of the level, so my first thought was, I don't know what color to pick, why not a gradient? And here I used an incredible piece of advice, which is, when it comes to visual art, if it feels like you're heading in the wrong direction, go further. Because of my lack of confidence in visual art, I always want to shy away from my own ideas, make things softer or duller in the hopes that somehow it'll all blend in. But of course, it has the opposite effect of just making everything worse. Instead of a soft gradient, how about lines? Which also doesn't look good. Let's go further. Jagged lines that move. And now, I think this looks good. To make these layers, I wrote a shader. And if you're worried shaders are too complex, check this one out. It's really simple. We start with a square, then we cut out the top left triangle. Then we add some horizontal cuts into the remaining shape. Then we randomly change the size and spacing of these cuts. And that's it. Of course, you can also achieve this without shaders. It's totally up to you. Here's some code to add 10 of these layers, space them out, and give each one a solid color on our color gradient. And I've also made all of these numbers slowly move over time. The size of the cutoff and the spacing of the cutoff are all going to be gradually getting smaller and larger. That's this code here. And that looks like this, but it's a little bit hard to see, so let me just exaggerate it for the video and then I'll set it back. So I just multiplied everything by 4. This is 4 times as fast. It's moving 4 times as much, just so you could see what was happening. But on my screen while you're playing the game, that subtle movement does look really nice. And now it's time to think about the foreground and what colors look good on this background. Artists break conventions all the time, but right now we're going to follow them. And the one we're going to follow says that you shouldn't use colors together that have a similar amount of darkness or lightness to them. Our background is in the midtones, so for the foreground colors, we want to use either very light or very dark colors. I want to use both, so I'm going to use colors that are basically white and basically black. So the idea is that you make sure things look good in black and white, even if you're not using black and white. That way you can tell whether the contrast, the difference between the lights and the darks, still look good. I've chosen black for the platforms that are a part of the level, and white for the main character, as well as the platforms that the player places down. One thing I'm trying to express with this level is that you, the player, don't belong here. So I want another way again that the level platforms tie in with the background, and the player and the player's platforms are distinct. I've given the level platforms this moving effect to echo the moving effect of the background. Again, another shader. It's just a sine wave and a fade. I did want there to be some connection between the player and the background. I wanted the level to recognize that you exist and to add a bit of depth to the 2D screen. I made it so that when you jump, the background layers also move. When you have upward velocity, they bunch together, and when you have downward velocity, they spread out. To get it to look good, I had to keep tweaking the algorithm, so it did end up a little complex. In order to smooth out the movement, I had it take into consideration the last 20 frames and find an average of the velocity of those, which it uses to adjust the height. The effect is weaker with the downward velocity than with the upward velocity. I don't know why, but this just looked better. And also, the layers at the bottom move more than those at the top. This is to add that depth that we were looking for. Anyway, here's the end result. Let me know what you think.